Hello, I'm Peter from PJT Cabinets down here in Melbourne. We do customised joinery, one-offs, gives you an idea of size of the company. We've got about 12 employees, we've got about 4 in the office, about 8 in the factory, and we turn over about 1.4 per year. That gives you an idea that we're not a small operation, but we're not exactly large. So from there, we had a manual system in place, and we thought our manual system was pretty good. We used to make the guys fill out every day their time cards, and with the job card, the old card like everyone would have done, and hand them in at the end of the day, of which we would have put on, well, our bookkeeper used to put those onto the Excel spreadsheets the next day. And the idea was that they may machine something, and we used to break ours up to assembly, and machining, and then fitting, which is the 3 main categories that most joiners or cabinet makers would work to. We thought that everybody was doing it fairly diligently, but what we sort of were, at the end of the day, were working out that people were getting to the end of the day and going, oh, I think I worked on that job for about an hour, hour and a half today, and whatever. We were stringently telling them that they had to, when they changed jobs to another job, was to write it on their time cards, but paper and cabinet makers sometimes just don't go together.
Yep. Did you find that? I think one of your boys mentioned that you ran out the in-power system in parallel to your manual system. What was the outcome there?
Well, we decided to sort of see how we went with it. And the decision was we were going to do it for a month. After 2 weeks, we threw the old system out the door because we found that it was very inaccurate and didn't really reflect where we're at, which made us feel like that probably the data that we were keeping, or we kept for all those years to measure ourselves, was fairly inaccurate.
In the industry, I think they call those cards timesheets, lie sheets and crime sheets. Is that a fair summary of the accuracy?
Oh, and probably all of the above.
Okay.
As I said before, paper and cabinet makers don't seem to go together.
Yep. So for those who are out there, there's two groups of joiners out there, those, or manufacturers, those who do time track and get their stuff to fill in their timesman jobs, and others who don't. What advice have you got to those who do have manual time cards?
Well, the ones that have got manual time cards, I honestly believe that overall you're almost probably wasting your time unless you're absolutely sure how accurate they are. The other thing too is that what we found was that they were never real data. They were always lagging behind a day or two. The bookkeeper might have been away, so they were 2 or 3 days old, and by the time you got them to the spreadsheet and we analysed the hours and things like that, it was a very inefficient way of doing things. The other thing that we noticed too was that we had to make some decisions early. Where we said it was 8 hours to put a kitchen together, or 2 hours, or 3.5 hours, or whatever, we decided to tell the staff and give them actual goals to achieve. Now, there's 2 ways of arguing about this. A lot of people say, they may get it done in 7 hours, and if you put 8 hours on it, they'll bludge for the last hour. There's probably merit in that too, but if you don't tell them anything, they can take 14 hours and say, well, you never told me how long it took. So I think setting them goals was a good thing, and I think that any minor losses you had in there, you've had some major gains everywhere else.
Awesome. Okay, advice separately to those who don't time track at all.
Well, I really can't see how they could get any costings, because let's face it, when you do a quote on joinery or whatever, it's an educated guess at the end of the day. Unless you're making the same table or the same desk or the same kitchen over and over, you haven't really got anything to benchmark. And we wanted great feedback to get back to our estimators to see how we were going. If you haven't not time tracking, you really don't know how much a product costs. So when someone says, can you do it for this price, can you do it for that price, how do you know? How do you know you're not losing money? And if you're going to lose money, you might as well go broke on the golf course than be pushing out joinery that you're losing money on.
Yep, so your summary advice is do progress from manual to a live PC-based time tracking system, and not time tracking at all gives you no ability to drive productivity and also compare your budgeted to actual labour.
Oh, absolutely. We used to do the workshop only, which was assembly, as I said before, machining and fitting. But since we've had the time tracking equipment, we've actually tracked how long the salespeople take to speak to clients and how long they've spent developing the quotation and things like that. Now, that time is not generally chargeable, although we do some design fees and things like that, and we can see how long we spend. But at least we can say, gee, do you realise that a quote can take up to 10 hours of consultation and time before you've actually done the job, which is really good feedback to sort of see how your sales staff are going. And we actually convert hours into dollars. And generally, we're saying sales-wise, you're probably looking at around about an hour to an hour and a half for every $10,000 just the sale. And then you've got your quotations and everything on top of that again.
And I also understand, Pete, you're tracking your machine programmers, your design detailers, and those ordering your materials after you've got the order, but before it goes to the factory.
Yeah, just gives you an overall thing an overall time that you...
Well, it's a complete job cost, isn't it, rather than a factory-only job cost?
Yeah, I mean, look, the only thing we don't track is we don't track reception. So, if they spend 10 minutes on the phone, well, so be it. They can't be logging on and off, taking phone calls and things like that. So sort of bookkeeping, reception, anything that generalises right across the board to everyone paying the bills at the end of the month, well, obviously we don't sort of split that up. But, generally from purchasing through to all the production elements are all covered.
Okay. So you had a manual system previously. What's your bottom line gain out of using time tracking?
Yeah, we were pretty fussy how we did things before. And sort of had everything fairly well organised, and we were sort of hoping in the factory to probably get a 20-25% gain, and we'd be pretty happy with that if we could get to that point. And we think we achieved that no problem. But we also achieved a lot in the office because the people we had adding up, the timesheets and taking the data from the cheat sheets and whatever and putting it onto Excel and working it out and whatever, we probably picked up about a 15% gain in the office, and that freed them up to do more things like chasing debtors and everyone else who hasn't paid us and doing more office things. It also meant that if the bookkeeper wasn't at work, we were still gathering our information. If he was away on holidays for a week or whatever, we got a temp in, no one had to do the time cards because they were getting done automatically.
Now there's two other systems, Peter, that you'll advise you're going to be looking at in the future with Empower. One is our front-end system for quotings and costing and proposals and materials, and then our final system, which is the third system, the job scheduling. Is it advantage to have those additional module options open to you as a joiner?
Well, I think so. As I said, that's a tough one because I haven't really had an in-depth look at either one of them. But look, with whatever software you have, the less islands you can have, the better. The more any software links together, the more chance you've got at trying to make it seamless.
That was my question. Yeah, great. So what's your summary advice?
Summary advice that I actually said something to somebody recently. I didn't even realise I actually said it. I honestly believe now that if I had to start a manufacturing business up now, it'd probably be the first piece of software I'd actually buy. Because I think it's easy to get it up and running. It's not complicated, and we all as cabinet makers get a bit cheesed off with, we buy software and we get all excited about it, and about 2 years later we actually get it to work. But this is a sort of software you can get up and running within a few days. I had no trouble getting it up and running on my own we were sort of fully operational within about 2 or 3 days, and probably a week of fine tuning, and we were there, and we really probably haven't touched too much of it in the 3 years that we've had it.
That's Empower software you're talking about?
Yep.
Beauty.
Absolutely.
Separately, support and service backup from Empower?
Yeah, that's always good, apart from the time difference, but we can't help that, the dateline. We just got to remember to ring early in the morning because they finish a little bit earlier, but they've been fantastic, especially with things like saying, well, we wanted to be able to do this, we wanted to be able to do that. They've rewritten the software for us, which is something that everyone needs to think about. If you buy a lot of this proprietary software that's locked, well, you're stuck with what you got. This is like rubber. You can turn it into whatever you want, and they've been fantastic. They've rewritten little bits of it for us, which everyone's gained from, I think, in the long term. But it's been a fantastic thing and a bit of a work in progress with everybody.
So I think probably one of the main reasons for that is we're not Yankee European software. It's Aussie Kiwi software.
Oh, it is.
Owned and developed by us, so that.
Well, that's what I mean. When you ring them up, you're actually getting to talk to the people that built it, rather than who tells to somebody else that tells a salesman that tells somebody else that tells someone else and whatever. And it's been very good. Very, very happy with that sort of side of things. If we've had any little glitches with it or whatever, which you always get. Anyone that thinks you're not going to get a glitch with software is an idiot. And they've been fixed up within a couple of hours, and especially these days with the technology available to remote access you, RA they call it, and fix it up there and there on the screen's been fantastic.
Okay, so you should have put it in 10 years ago, in other words.
Well, yeah, if we knew it was what it was all about then, we probably would have. But, like all cabinet makers, unless it's a hammer or a saw or a CNC, we don't get very interested in it. But, at the end of the day, I think it allows you to buy the CNC and the saw and all those sort of things because you're making money and you're working out where you're going.
Right, so if you do actually spend a hell of a lot of money on CNC, which a lot of you joiners do, it makes sense to couple it up to have productivity software to get the most out of your machines.
Well, otherwise, how do you know how you're measuring anything? That's the sort of the problem as well. Look, and we've actually used it for the guys as well. When we have guys, and look, we're all gonna be in the same boat with this. Every cabinet maker that comes and works for you is a gun. When they sit there at the interview, they can do everything. And they want this much money and they want that much money. We've actually linked it now to their productivity so that, if they're regularly under their times and their jobs are going out well, then we say to them, look, here's a pay rise. Simple as that. When they walk in the door and say, I'm worth it, and you pull out the times and say, hang on a minute, you haven't got one job under budget and you've had reworks on all of them, how do you think you're worth more money? And they've gone, fair point, and walked out the door. So it gives you some good positive feedback for them. And it also lets you know who your good players are out in your workshop.
Awesome. So do you mind if any joiner give you a bell, Pete? Just have a quick chat.
Yeah. Look, I've already had a few people come and have a chat with me about it. Best thing to do is if you want to give me a call, just give me a call, Melbourne 03 9335 4533, and just give us a bell, and I'll have a bit of a chat with you about it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Cheers.
Highly recommend it.